One moment on stage was enough to ignite the internet. A short clip began circulating online showing Jang Wonyoung subtly moving toward the middle of the formation during a performance with IVE. At first it looked ordinary, just another idol adjusting position during choreography, but within hours the video spread across Korean forums, TikTok edits, and YouTube analysis channels. Some viewers insisted the movement was deliberate, claiming Wonyoung was trying to secure the center position of the group. Others argued it was simply part of the choreography or a moment taken out of context. But the internet rarely waits for context. What started as a few seconds of fancam footage quickly turned into a full-blown debate about ambition, spotlight, and the unwritten rules of K-pop stage hierarchy. The controversy escalated because Wonyoung was never just another idol. She had already been known as a center since her teenage years, when she captured national attention through the survival show Produce 48, and later debuted in Is One. To many viewers, that history made the new clip feel symbolic, almost like a continuation of a narrative that had followed her career for years. Critics claimed she was too focused on the spotlight, while supporters argued she was being unfairly targeted simply because she had always stood out visually and professionally. The arguments multiplied across comment sections. Was she chasing the center, or was the internet chasing another reason to criticize her? In the world of K-pop, perception can be stronger than reality. A single camera angle, a single step forward, or a half-second shift in formation can become evidence in a trial held entirely online. And for Wonyoung, who has spent much of her career under intense scrutiny, this moment felt like the spark that reignited a much larger story. Because the real question behind this viral clip isn't just about stage position, it's about why some idols become symbols of admiration, while others become magnets for controversy. Before the hate edits, before the center controversy, before millions of viewers decided they already knew who she was, Jang Wonyoung was just a teenager entering a system built to magnify both beauty and pressure at the same time. She joined Starship as a trainee while still very young, and almost immediately, the industry noticed what cameras tend to notice first: height, proportion, elegance, and the kind of face that reads as star before a person even speaks. But visuals alone do not create a center. In K-pop survival culture, a center is chosen not just because they stand out, but because they can carry projection. Fans must be able to imagine them as the face of a group, the face of a season, sometimes even the face of a generation. Wonyoung entered that machine as a girl, but the system began shaping her into an image long before she was old enough to fully control it. Then came Produce 48 and everything changed at once. On a survival show, the public does not simply watch talent, they rank, compare, critique, and claim ownership over every facial expression, every line distribution, every second of screen time. Wonyoung was only 14 when she stepped into that arena, yet she immediately drew attention. Some viewers saw a born center, poised, charming, photogenic, and unexpectedly calm under pressure. Others thought she was too young, too polished, too obviously favored by the camera. This is the first major contradiction in her story. The same qualities that made her rise also made people suspicious of her rise. When she finally ranked first and became the center of Is One, it should have felt like a fairy tale ending. Instead, it also marked the beginning of a long public argument about whether she had earned her visibility or had simply been built for it by the machine around her. And that is a brutal thing to place on a 14-year-old girl, that she must not only win, but spend years defending the fact that she won. Is One turned that survival show victory into a real-world identity. Wonyoung was no longer just a contestant who ranked first. She became a functioning center in one of the most watched project groups of her generation. Every comeback reinforced the same visual grammar. When the formation opened, eyes naturally went to her. When cameras searched for a focal point, they often found her. This made her famous very quickly, but it also trapped her inside a narrative she would never fully escape. She grew up not as an ordinary idol, but as the center girl, the one people expected to stand in the middle, and the one people resented for standing there. That is why her later controversies feel so loaded. They are never just about one performance or one clip. They connect back to the first time the public decided what Wonyoung represented. Part 2 ends there, at the exact point where success becomes inseparable from scrutiny, because from the moment she became center, she was never going to be treated like anyone else again. When Jang Wonyoung re-entered the industry with IVE, she did not come back as a rookie starting from zero. She came back as a symbol people already recognized. That changed everything. The public did not look at her and ask, "Who is she?" They asked, "Can she still be the center?" And Starship answered that question visually before anyone said it out loud. Wonyoung's proportions, posture, camera awareness, and ability to command a frame made her impossible to ignore. On stage, she carried the kind of visual clarity that brands love and fan cams reward. Offstage, she fit the image economy of K-pop perfectly: luxury, elegance, youth, polish. She did not just look like an idol, she looked like the ideal version of one, and that is exactly where the pressure began. IVE's rise only intensified that image. Songs like 11, Love Dive, and Afterlike gave the group a glamorous, confident identity, and Wonyoung became one of its clearest faces. The internet started treating her less like a teenager and more like a concept: princess idol, human luxury brand, born center. Fashion houses, cosmetic campaigns, and magazine covers reinforced the same message over and over. Wonyoung was not merely famous, she was aspirational. But aspiration creates distance, and distance creates projection. The more flawless she looked, the more people started searching for the flaw. In K-pop, being adored at that level is never passive. It creates a counterforce: suspicion. If she looked too polished, some called it fake. If she smiled too perfectly, some called it calculated. If she seemed graceful in every frame, some decided the grace itself must be an act. That is the cruelty of visual fame. The thing that makes you marketable also makes you easier to resent. This is why Part 3 matters before the drama fully explodes. It shows how Wonyoung became the kind of idol the internet cannot leave alone. She was not just successful, she was hyper-visible, and hyper-visibility changes the rules. Ordinary behavior no longer stays ordinary. Eating a strawberry, waving to a fan, adjusting your body angle on stage, even the way you hold eye contact with a camera, everything becomes material for analysis. By the time the bigger hate train narratives began to form, the foundation had already been built. Wonyoung had become too visible to be treated casually, too polished to be forgiven easily, and too iconic to be viewed neutrally. The perfect idol image gave her power, but it also made every future controversy more combustible. Because once the public turns you into a symbol, they stop reacting to what you do, they react to what you represent. By the time the bigger controversy arrived, the internet had already been rehearsing for it. Wonyoung did not become a target because of one scandal. She became a target because smaller moments had trained the public to read everything she did as suspicious. A strawberry clip became a debate about whether she was too cute on purpose. A positive phrase like "Lucky Vicky" became proof to some people that she was too polished, too scripted, too aware of her own image. Even the way she smiled, bowed, or reacted on camera started getting cut into short videos and reposted as evidence that she was performing femininity instead of simply living it. What's striking is how small these moments were compared to the size of the reaction. None of them should have mattered that much on their own. But together, they built a pattern in the public imagination. Wonyoung as the idol people loved to analyze, imitate, mock, and accuse all at once. That is how a hate train works in K-pop. It does not always begin with one catastrophic event. Often it builds through repetition. One clip becomes a meme, the meme becomes a stereotype, the stereotype becomes a lens, and suddenly every future action is filtered through that lens before anyone even watches the full context. For Wonyoung, the lens was clear: too perfect, too aware, too center-like. And once the internet decides someone is too much, it becomes hungry for proof. People stop seeing a teenager or a young woman navigating extreme visibility and start seeing a symbol they want either to worship or tear down. There is rarely any middle ground. That is why the older dramas matter, even if only briefly, in this story. They are not the main event, but they explain the atmosphere. They show how the public had already learned to treat Wonyoung as a kind of live experiment, watching to see whether she would stay elegant, crack under pressure, or give them a new reason to talk. So when the center controversy finally exploded, it did not come out of nowhere. It landed on a surface the internet had already prepared for impact. The reason this controversy exploded so violently is simple. In K-pop, the center is not just a spot in the choreography, it is a symbol of power. The center gets remembered first, clipped first, screenshotted first, and blamed first. So, when short performance clips of Jang Wonyoung began circulating online, showing her appearing to drift toward the middle of IVE's formation, people did not see a small adjustment, they saw a battle for attention. Some viewers claimed she was subtly reclaiming the spotlight whenever the chance appeared, as if center were something she could not give up. Others insisted the accusations were absurd, pointing out that stage formations are decided in advance by choreographers, directors, and camera blocking, not improvised by idols in real time. But controversy on the internet does not survive because it is proven. It survives because it is visual, repeatable, and emotionally satisfying to argue about. And this drama had all three. Once the clip spread, the internet did what it always does to highly visible women. It slowed everything down. Fans and antis began dissecting frames, comparing fan cams, building evidence threads, and editing together compilations meant to prove a pattern. A step forward became proof of ambition. A slight body turn became proof of calculation. Even moments that happened when the members were simply standing casually or shifting during transitions were pulled into the conversation, reframed as clues in a case the internet wanted to solve. What made the situation particularly combustible was that Wonyoung already carried years of symbolic baggage. She had been center before. She had won first place before. She had been accused of being too polished, too visible, too ideal before. So this new controversy did not need to create a narrative from scratch. It simply attached itself to one that already existed, that Wonyoung is the girl who always ends up in the middle, and that somehow her success must contain intention people can resent. But this is exactly where the controversy becomes more revealing than the clip itself. Because even if someone personally dislikes Wonyoung's stage presence, the structure of idol performance remains the same. Formations are planned, movements are drilled, center switches are designed, and idols do not freely improvise spotlight politics in the middle of a professional stage the way the internet likes to imagine. That is why so many fans pushed back hard. They argued that the accusation itself was built on bad faith, that people were not reacting to what happened on stage so much as to what they wanted Wonyoung to represent. To them, she was not being judged as one member in one formation. She was being judged as the center girl who had become too easy to project things onto. And that is the darker truth underneath this drama. Once an idol becomes a symbol, people stop asking what is likely and start asking what feels narratively satisfying. Wonyoung wanting the center fits the story, so the story gets repeated whether or not the evidence deserves that confidence. This is also why the controversy says something larger about K-pop itself. The center position has always carried tension because it looks like the physical expression of hierarchy. Fans know that the middle matters, camera directors know it matters, companies know it matters, and idols know it matters even if they cannot publicly talk about it. So when Wonyoung, already associated with visual dominance and center history, appears in that space, the reaction becomes disproportionate. The internet is not merely debating one movement. It is debating deservingness. Who is allowed to shine the most? Who is too visible? Who gets punished for looking like they belong in the middle? Underneath the accusations is a deeper discomfort many people do not admit directly. Wonyoung makes center look natural, and natural power is often more provocative than obvious ambition. In the end, that is why this became the defining drama rather than just another passing clip. It gathered every older resentment, every prior meme, every accusation of being too perfect, and compressed them into one easy image: Wonyoung stepping toward the middle. Whether that step was intentional or not almost became irrelevant. The controversy succeeded because it transformed movement into narrative, and narrative into judgment. And for Wonyoung, that may be the harshest price of her image. Even her positioning on stage no longer belongs only to choreography. It belongs to the internet's imagination. At the end of all this, the most revealing thing about Jang Wonyoung is not that she keeps becoming the center of attention. It is that attention itself has become her burden. She is still young, still successful, still one of the most recognizable faces in K-pop, and yet every part of her image now arrives with a second shadow: suspicion. If she looks elegant, some people call it fake. If she smiles too perfectly, they call it rehearsed. If she stands in the middle, they call it calculated. That is the real cost of being Wonyoung, not just fame, but the constant rewriting of ordinary moments into controversy. Her beauty, posture, confidence, and stage instinct made her a star, but those same things also made her a target for an internet that no longer watches neutrally. And yet, despite the noise, she has not disappeared. She is still standing on the biggest stages, still carrying campaigns, still leading headlines, still moving through the industry with the same polished gravity that made people notice her in the first place. That is what makes her story more than a scandal story. It is a story about what happens when an idol becomes so visible that even breathing looks intentional. Wonyoung did not become controversial because she lacked impact. She became controversial because her impact became impossible to ignore. In K-pop, the center is where the camera goes first. But for someone like Wonyoung, it is also where the judgment arrives first. And maybe that is the final irony of her career. The girl accused of always wanting the spotlight is also the girl who has had no choice but to live under it.